go.
We owned a Maule before, but this time we're pushing the Maule to its limits, flying in our cul-de-sac, landing in tight spaces, and wrecking it so that you know that what you see is what you get. We're beating up the Maule so you don't have to. Check it out, YouTube. Today we've got the FMS Maule 1500mm. This thing is super cool. You may have known it as the red E-flite Maule 1.5 meter. Now it's turquoise. My wife says it's blue, but this has literally got green in it. I'm not colorblind, dear.
All I know is it's hard to see against the sky, man.
Yeah, it definitely is, and there's bugs out here too. So, you know, we're getting into that springtime in NC where the bugs come out, and I gotta start wearing bug spray. Got a nice little battery compartment here where we were stuffed in an SMC 2800 milliamp pack that needed a converter to convert it to an EC or IC3. I'm running an Avian 60 amp ESC. It comes with a stock 40 amp. We went ahead and took that out. The reason being is because there's nothing wrong with it. This plane will fly fine on the 40 amp, but we wanted the telemetry from the Avian and we want it reverse thrust, which is going to be super useful for the float segments coming up right after this flight. Foam hinges across the board, plastic servos across the board. If you do want to upgrade it, the major upgrades I would recommend for this plane would be upgrading the plastic servos in the rudder and in the elevator. You'll probably be fine and you'll do most of what you want to do with the plastic servos, but metal geared servos from FMS would be a pretty good choice too. We can put those in the description if you want them. Overall, it's basically the same quality plane as the E-flite Maule. Flies really good. Really no problems with it. Was out here torque rolling it on the B-roll section. I think you guys are gonna like this one. Wind is coming from this way, so I'm gonna pop around the ground and we're gonna take off and show you what it's capable of. Alrighty.
17.2 volts.
Here we go. Getting her lined up, get the rudder turned in there, get her nose pushed down a little bit. We're running it on a 4-cell 2800 SMC, as I mentioned earlier, using an AS3X gyro, an AS3X 631 receiver, Spectrum. Works great, tons of power on 4 cells. This thing is so lightweight. Honestly, I could probably fly this in my cul-de-sac on 4 cells, not even remotely worried about it in the slightest. I'll show you what I mean. Drop full flaps, come in, using left rudder to steer the nose around. Now we're gonna use right rudder, and we're just gonna steer it in crabbed. We're just gonna crab it all the way in, right at my face. The wind is not helping because it's not straight line on the runway, but that's okay. Again, see how slow this thing can get? Let's drop the flaps again, bring it in one more time to show you guys how slow it can get using right rudder to keep it pointed at myself. Look at it go. Straighten it out. One wheel takeoff. Super capable little plane. It is very nose heavy in its current configuration. I need to find some way to move the receiver back further, maybe move the wiring back. See if I can get it to have a more neutrally balanced center of gravity. If I wanted it to be a little bit lighter, I could also, or not lighter, but yes, lighter and more neutrally balanced, I could also use a 3-cell pack instead of a 4-cell pack. That would work really well for this model. You just wouldn't get all the crazy power. I mean, look at how powerful this thing is. 3, 2, 1, punching it. You have all the vertical. And here's what I mean about flat spins. You'll see that they're not exactly all that flat. Adding counter aileron, and it's nose down. Honestly, it looks very similar to a full-scale Maule were it to do that kind of maneuver. That's probably what it would look like. It would look like a spin rather than a completely flat spin. Use some knife edge here. Lot of roll coupling. So now I'm having to use a lot of left aileron to keep it lined up. Now I have to use right aileron as I'm going the other side. It's very hard to keep it tracking in a straight line. Knife edge, to me, is not this plane's forte. It can be done, but it does not like it. It takes a lot of extra work. We set it up for crow as well, so that means the ailerons will go up as the flaps come out. So we're gonna enable crow, flip it over. You can see the ailerons both popped up. We're gonna slip it in using a lot of rudder. Thing barely covers any ground. We're gonna stall into the ground. Look at that, perfectly fine. Very, very capable little bird. Not very expensive either. It gets like a $2.99. It comes with floats too, which you guys are gonna see soon. Now you guys have seen some of what it's capable of. Let's show you what it can do with a little bit of 3D, what limited 3D it can do, which is mostly hovering. So here we go. Torque rolling is a lot of fun. A lot of fun. You need a decent amount of back elevator to get it to stabilize in a hover though, and you need to be comfortable with the model in this orientation. I will not recommend that you do this if you're not used to flying a plane that has no aileron control while you're hovering. But all that power is perfectly fine. You get right out of it. And the ESC is getting a little warm. It's about 200 degrees right now. I had to look down. My sunglasses are polarized and this screen is cross-polarized. So when I look down at it without using, like looking below my glasses, what ends up happening is the screen goes black and I can't see it. So I have to like look underneath the glasses. A little bit of a crab coming in. A lot of fun to fly this thing. Let's do some regular aerobatic routines. Go up and do a hammerhead with it. Slow roll it as best we can. I'm not much of a slow roller. I need to practice this a bit more, but hey, I can practice it on cam with you guys. Roll, add rudder. It's not horrible. It's a fun little model to fly. I could probably bush fly this in front of my house. Let's see if we can get it to actually do a proper tail slide. So we're gonna go up right about here. We're gonna reduce throttle, hold back elevator. Nope, it's too light to really wanna sink with a little bit of power. Bring the crow back in. Bring the plane with a little bit of a side slip. Hold that crab angle with the rudder to the right as it points at me. Wind's kicking up just a little bit. See how slow it can go? Gotta definitely keep the wings as level as possible when you're flying it like this. But it can be done. I wouldn't call this a Harrier, although it could actually a Harrier. Hold on, let's try it a little higher. Having to pulse the throttle a lot to get it to fly like this. All right, get out of the flaps. All right, hold still, dude. We're gonna go right past the camera real fast. 14.6 volts. Show you guys what else it can do. Here's the top speed. I'm gonna throttle back because I know the ESC is on the verge of getting too hot. Well, maybe not, it's at 181. It's not complaining too much. Let's do some flat turns while we're out here. Show you guys what else it can do on this battery pack. All right, start kicking in the rudder. Use some left rudder, right aileron, just enough to keep the wings level. Hitting little pockets of turbulence out there. 15 volts. Yeah, I love watching it hit different air currents. It's so cool to watch. It's a very lightweight plane at 100, like what is it? 1500 millimeters, 1.5 meters. It definitely gets affected by the wind a bit, but it's fun. Let's bring it in with a reverse thrust landing. There we go, nosed it over. How much power do we have left? 14.8 volts. Okay, so it's about time to bring it in. We got quite a bit of flight time out of it, I'd say. Not bad at all. Check it out, YouTube. So we're back. Next day, we've got the Maule M7 floating down here in the water, getting it taxied out. Just did a test flight with it, did some torque rolling and hovering. You know how we do here. Let's go ahead and toss the flaps in and get her on up. It's important with this plane to hold some back elevator pressure as you're taxiing, especially as you get ready to take off. The floats can and will dig into the water and flip the plane. It's not as much of an issue right now on a day like this, where you have, what do you call it, very light winds. But on a day where it's choppy water, those floats can easily dig in and flip the plane over. That was very common on my E-flite Maule from, E-flite Maule from Horizon, because I had to add tail weight to get it to not do that. Very good little plane.
16.4 volts.
SMC 2800 packs as usual. If the plane survives today, and I have no doubt that it will, we're gonna take it and try to do a little bit of bush flying with it, tail heavy production style. So we'll see if we can get it in there. Use the crow, side slip it in, bring it in for a landing in this confined area that we're working with here. Hold the rudder and a little bit of throttle. Perfecto. Plane is easy to fly, no matter what you're doing with it really. It's just slightly nose heavy, which is something I don't care for much. It is perfectly hoverable on the water as well. I'm gonna have to talk a little louder so you guys can hear me. You get used to doing this and it becomes second nature. So much fun to fly like this. There we go. Saw it coming on my head, went around it. That's what rudder is for, guys. When it starts getting a little weird and the wing drops on you, you can use rudder. It'll kick the wing right back up where it needs to be. If you don't want to land with crow or you don't want to set it up, which is super easy to do, all you got to do is just hold some right rudder and you can slip it in the whole way. It's very easy. This plane is phenomenal. Amazing flyer. It's a little limited, but I have to admit it's one of the better flying bush planes out there. Regardless of how limited it is in aerobatics, it's no turbo timber. I'm not gonna be able to do the cool stuff that I can do with the turbo timber, but I can do these nice flat turns, for example. So while we're doing flat turns, I'll describe some of the stuff that I do expect to be able to do with it. I think with the 3-cell FMS 2200 pack that I've got, I think I'm gonna be able to get this thing to do some really good confined area bush flying. I'm gonna try to fly it at my house and slip it in over my house. I'm also gonna try to fly it over at this place down the street from my house. It's part of my neighborhood that the homeowners association owns. And I think that will work out pretty well. These flat turns are not a problem at all. The plane is hitting a little bit of turbulence and I am slightly over controlling it in some spots. There's some turbulence right there, very gentle stuff. On 4 cells, you have so much power to weight. It's ridiculous. Love it though. On 3 cells, I think it's gonna have more than enough power. Let's do some more slipping. Bring it in with some right rudder again. Hold that approach, coming right at the camera. Should be nice and easy to see what it's doing. There we go. 1 float touchdown. How much power we got? 15.8 volts. All right, got a jet flying overhead that's making it hard to hear what I'm saying, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and take off again into this blinding sun. A little bit more torque rolling. It's on the same battery pack. I haven't swapped it out or anything. And you can flop it down, and it doesn't care. It's so well built, so engineered. It's phenomenal how well these bush planes can fly on water. These high wing planes love to hover. And honestly, as long as you keep a little bit of back elevator pressure like this and keep the front of the floats from digging in, you'll have no problem. But when it starts doing that right there is when you need to worry. If you push down, you can easily make it flip over. It's kind of nose heavy by default, so that's something to be aware of. Let's do a full span flap takeoff this time, so the ailerons are drooped. Show you how quick it gets up. Super easy. You don't want to do it with full flaps, I don't think. Like half flaps is more than enough.
13 losses, 78% strength.
Give me my battery.
14.9 volts.
Plenty of power left. I think we might get ready to wrap it up and go to the house and fly there. The float flying is awesome and fun. I'm sure you guys are getting a kick out of it, but there is something to be said for trying to fly it in more even confined areas. Yeah, unfortunately this time of year, Lake Lockmere, the sun sets directly in front of the dock that I'm standing on, which makes it a little bit more troublesome to fly because now I'm getting blinded, and so is my wife when she films with the camera.
15.2 volts.
Pulsing the throttle to get this nice high beta knife edge in place, looking good. Throwing the crow. This is why I don't think I'm gonna have any problem flying it. Look at how well it handles these turns with the crow. This is on a 4-cell pack, and it's not a lightweight 4-cell either. I mean, it is relatively for its capacity. Look at that. I think we're gonna have no issues flying this on 3 cells. I think it's gonna be insanely good. I think this thing's gonna be, like, we're gonna fly it in a very confined area, and I'm kind of looking forward to it. And if it wrecks, well, it's just more content for the channel. I'll get the replacement parts and we'll take it right back.
15.4 volts.
15.4 volts. Let's do a little bit more flying with it, and then go ahead and wrap it up. Let's show you guys what it does with a full forward slip coming from a vertical. So going up, flaps up, into the crow. We're gonna go straight up here. We're gonna do a power off landing. Full flaps coming in, full left rudder, now full right rudder, pushing the nose down. Here we go. No throttle at all. Watch how easy this is. Holding the rudder, now we're gonna let it go. If this thing can do what I just did right there, I think we're gonna see a really good stall characteristic for bush flying. A little bit more flying with it, and then we'll wrap it up and get ready to move on to more challenging flying, because this is actually too easy, I think. And if I'm having no problem with it, I think you guys will have no issues with it either. Honestly, it's so well behaved. It does kind of bite when it stalls, but it's not that hard to get out of. A little bit of rudder will help you with that. Let's go ahead and turn the plane around, use the rudder to steer it, and then do right hand flat turns, so you guys can be done in both directions, no problem. Just a bit of throttle, some counter aileron, and some rudder, and just push the nose down ever so slightly, and it'll just sit there and happily plod along. This is probably one of the better planes for this. If you can't get your hands on something like a Fun Cub, I think this is actually a pretty decent alternative. Honestly, the Super Cub 1300mm works well too. But this one is also just fantastic. 6 minutes of flight. We're gonna wrap it up here. I think we're gonna go off to the house, so we're gonna fly around there a little bit, then we're gonna go up the street, walk over, and then we're gonna fly in that confined spot. So let's see what happens next. Bush flying and radio control is kind of an oxymoron. True undeveloped sites for flying really suck. Models get caught on unmowed grass and the prop will just dig into the ground, or they flip on landing, or they act like lawnmowers. We can see the appeal of trying to fly in places like this, but if you want to try it for yourself, just note that it will take a lot of effort and will probably ding up your airplane's butt good for even trying it. All we can say is if you really want to try to bush fly the Maule, keep the wings unloaded while you're turning. Keep the nose pointed at the ground while you're banking, so you don't do what we just did. Keep all that in mind to build your slow flying skills up. It's definitely a lot of fun, but it's not something you should consider if chipped paint and scuffed up foam bothers you.
So close.
But now that we've demonstrated that it's possible to fly in this confined area, let's move it to the front of our house and see how it handles an 80-foot wide cul-de-sac with 200-foot tall trees. Handling it just fine. We work. All right, bringing it in. Go full crow, side slip it, coming all the way down. Handling it just fine. Look at this. Admittedly, the cul-de-sac is a little easier, but if something goes wrong, our neighbors might get a little angry. It takes a decent bit of practice to fly here. If the Maule can do it here, we're sure you'll have no problem flying it almost anywhere that's reasonable. The key to flying in confined spaces is keeping the wings as unloaded as possible, meaning that you want to avoid pulling the elevator. The speed at which any aircraft stalls increases as the wings are loaded up more. If the normal stall speed of the Maule is 15 miles per hour, loading up the wings with 4 Gs will result in a stall speed of 30 miles per hour. This is because wing loading increases stall speed exponentially. The harder you pull the elevator, especially while banking, the more the aircraft's stall speed increases. Keep this in mind and try to turn while keeping the wings unloaded. You can do this by climbing to a safe altitude, using rudder to kick the nose around to point it at the ground, and use down elevator pressure to unload the wings as much as possible. Another key to flying in confined areas is getting confident with forward slipping. By using rudder, flaps, and down elevator pressure, you can bring in a model at a much slower speed than any normal approach. Practice this technique. It's very easy to do once you get used to it, and you can spot land every time if you refine your approaches. The Maule's versatility makes it a pretty good pick in our opinion, earning it a solid 9 out of 10. The wire strut gear aren't amazing and will need to be bent back in shape with rougher landings, but they weigh less than any wire spring system, which makes it easier to fly the Maule in tighter spaces. The paint job is distinctive and easy to see. Wiring it up for crow and full span flaps was super simple, and all the wire leads were already in place and weren't wired together. It could definitely use an easier wing connection system, as screwing in the wings and connecting the plugs is the least enjoyable part of owning this bird. Overall though, it's fun to fly and we stand behind our 9 out of 10 rating. We think you'll love it too. And you can get 10% off the Maule using the code referral TwobrosRC if it's your first order with FMSHobby.com, or the code TwobrosRC for $10 off any order over $100. See you guys next time after we're done getting it out of this tree.